Different environments attract different plant life, and each different plant attracts its own different wildlife, its own animals. So the more diversity of native plant life you have, the more wildlife you have, and the more animals you have, and the more biodiversity overall. Uh, so this is a very new bit of land here, and it's just been colonised by nitrogen-fixing plants like clover. As a grassland becomes more established, you get a much higher diversity of wild plants that are up, like this ragged robin here, which is quite unusual. And you've got like some meadow sweet and a few different umbelliferous plants and a few different types of like spearwort and all different things started to come in the grassland. And over here, there's some bird's foot trefoil, which is a nice, like this little head of similar to clover type flowers. And so yeah, but the grasslands do need to be managed, either grazed or cut regularly. Regularly cut, like lawn, have totally different plants in it to like a meadow, which is just harvested for the hay each year. So how you cut your grass really affects what you have in it. One day this is going to be a lawn, but at the moment it's just a meadow. And in the orchard I'm going to do this cutting the grass like a meadow, so I've got like the orchard and a meadow growing together. But I'm sort of thinking that I'd like to have an actual just no meadow, a meadow bit without an orchard as well, maybe to get some like hay for the geese. But it's nice to have as many different environments as possible. But a grassland generally, most grassland plants like full direct sun, not the dappled shine of an orchard, but some plants will like that. But I think to get all of the environments, I'd like to have one area of meadowland as well. Garden plants and gardens are generally filled with mostly non-native plants, but they still provide food and habitats for wildlife and a different kind of environment, so long as you take care not to plant anything invasive like cherry laurels, which is going to seed into the environment and destroy wildlife. Most garden plants are well behaved, they don't spread out of gardens, and they do create sort of different foods for birds and things, and it's like a sort of different environment again. So yeah, gardens just create a bit more tapestry to all of the other different environments, and here it's like a little garden island, so it's like a little overlap of garden and pond, and it's all going to be just shrubs and trees, so it's fairly low maintenance. And this side behind me has been hit much longer than this bit, so this bit's way more established and the rest of it's just sort of fairly new. But it's nice to have all these different blending environments really close together. I think all these shrubs will be way bigger and this will be really overgrown. And then just careful not to step on anything. And then down here, the water when it's completely finished will be about here. And at the moment it's very low, so I can just about wade through it. And here you can see there's water uproots here that are above the ground because of the low water. But this then here is a woodland, and it sort of fragments the same way as this garden island here. This is like a woodland island, and then behind it is another woodland island, and then this channel comes right around over here, and then it branches off again to make that woodland island an island. So you've got this sort of blending of pond, garden and woodlands, really close proximity, so that all the wildlife here will have access to water. The water, which is all different depths, really deep over there and really shallow around here. It has attracts different kinds of things, different things like shallow water, like water plants, and fish and amphibians like to breed in the shallow water. And the deep water is a refuge for fish, and it's really good reservoirs, and we've always got water. And so the wildlife here is attracted by the water as well, and has always got somewhere to drink, however dry it is. So that's a really good thing to have water. Water is like a really essential thing. And here's one of the channels that we're cutting out. But as you can see, you've got this slope here which faces southeast. This slope here, as it's sort of cut down and exposed more, is facing northwest. And all around the islands you've got different bits facing different directions, so plants that like different amounts of sunlight and shade have all different habitats. So there's multiple different habitats there. The bits that will be down by the water's edge, they'll be really wet, and little valleys and things will be wet, and then you've got this big ridgy bit that will be really dry. So you've got all different sort of environments, and even in a woodland where you've got canopy, different plants still like growing where sun naturally gets to them, where they get sun in the spring and the winter. So it does definitely affect them, and also you get a lot of plants that like growing on steep bits where they don't get trampled on. Other plants that don't mind growing on footpaths. So it's like a whole, as many different kind of places as possible for as many different types of plants and animals. And in the woodland proper, like the mainland woodland, again we've got different bits facing different directions. That faces east, this faces west. And you've got, as you go around these different structures, you've got different bits facing different ways. But of course, you've got to account for drainage. You don't want like puddles forming and footpaths becoming boggy. So it's always, whatever you do, you've got to think, well, where's the water going to go? And I don't want it collecting anywhere apart from the ponds. Just all the water gets channeled towards the ponds. So you can see there's like a different environment here. This is just a mound, about 10 feet, 6 feet wide, about 20 feet long, and it just divides the footpath in half. This bit here is just a little freestanding mound just to make it look like there's a hillside there, but that's all it is. And it's just built against a straight bank on the other side. And here we've got some sort of flat bit which hasn't been altered, which is maybe just raised a tiny bit, a few inches. But this is all quite low-lying, flat woodland. And then up here there's like a terrace of higher woodland, which is attracts different plants. You get lots of wild garlic growing down here, and more so bluebells up here where it's a bit drier. And again, where you've got these nice steep bits, you know, they've got these primrose leaves, and there's primroses really like these bits that are kind of like where nobody walks. And there's loads of them all along this bank here, and loads of stitchwort as well. And the stitchwort likes growing up here. See all these leaves of stitchwort, they finished flowering now. But you see there's none over here where it's a bit wetter. So a totally different sort of environment in there. And you sort of see these dramatic changes where you get different landscape changes in any environment really. On this section we've taken it to more of an extreme. All the drainage from the higher ponds and the whole of the land really comes down this sort of flat bottomed valley here. And then here we've got this really, really steep bit, which is actually where a lot of the soil was dumped from putting one of the ponds. And then we've just landscaped it into a nice shape, covered it in topsoil, and then we've got lots of like bulbs and things that come here in the spring. And this valley feature goes on for quite a way. And so this bottom bit usually is squelchy to walk on. It's likes to, all the plants that grow in here like lots of moisture. And the only trees in here really are willows and silver birch and alders, and then sort of other shrub trees that like growing in such conditions like guelder roses and hazels and things. So it's like a different sort of environment. And then up on here on the steep bits where it gets really dry, we've got some Plymouth pears and wild service trees and white beams and things that like growing in a drier environment, and some field maples and things like that. And then this sort of continues all the way down this like little strip of boggy woodland, and then also this along both sides of it is drier woodland. But if I come over here, then on this side you've got a fairly flatter bit where the main path comes over, and then it slopes up into a valley side that side to the edge of the land, so that all the rainwater is all caught and captured and goes down this valley here. And so it creates a whole load of different environments. You've got the sort of like not too steep bit here, that's also got the dry high bits, and then different bits facing different directions. All this side sort of faces more towards the south, and then over here this valley coming down here, which comes all the way down here, and I haven't done it as a straight line either, it's sort of a bendy line. And of course having it bendy means the water takes longer to travel across the land, so it has more chance to soak in and replenish the water table. And of course then this side here is all like north facing, really steep north facing, and it's just perfect for snowdrops as well as lots of our wild plants as well. But it's, this whole area is a really dazzling display of snowdrops, which start flowering in about December really and go all the way to February, because there's loads of different types of them. So this little bit here, we get a little bit where I sort of like grow something in the woods, and it makes more justification to have more woods, because every year we sell a few snowdrops, and that's quite good. So it's like a bit of farming in the woods there, and so all that north-facing bits there in woodland, they're perfect for snowdrops. But then in the whole woods, north, south, whatever way they're facing, wild daffodils grow really well everywhere, but the ones in the sunny places come out before. And then on these boggy strips at the bottom, wild garlic really likes growing there. By contrast here, you've got the same sort of thing. You've got north facing this way, south facing that way, but it's less dramatic and less steep as it gets sort of higher up in this channel. So really everything, all the rain that falls on here, comes across here, and then down into this little ditch down here, which then takes the water sort of further down into the bit we were just in. And yeah, where we got wet bits, we got birch and alder, and then higher up on the dry bits, we got all of the oaks and the beech and things. So it makes a whole different diversity for different plants and things to grow, so that we get the maximum amount of wildlife possible. Hedges are a fantastic way of bringing diversity, because you keep cutting them so they don't get too big. So you've always got bits that get sun, and I always build them on little banks of earth, maybe 3 foot high on average, sometimes taller. And then when I do cut the hedges, I cut them to like 7 foot high, to about there. But this winter we only did the sides, and we just left the tops of them, and that was really good for nesting birds and things. But if you let them grow too high, then you lose that thickness at the bottom, so you don't really want to do that. So normally I cut them to like 7 foot high, but you've got like a little strip of woodland basically contained in a hedge. You've got all the different tree types you'd get in the woods, but it's just all in miniature. And you get all the woodland plants and everything. And in here we've got loads of wild strawberries. Every year we have tons and tons of wild strawberries, and they just love growing in hedges and in woodland. But again, they like the drier bits, and they like the steep banks where they don't get trampled. And they go on for much longer than cultivated strawberries, and they're just one of many native plants that's attracted to here. We did plant just a few little runners. They send out these runners with little plants on them, and years ago we put some in here, and they've just spread into this big colony. But they don't like growing any further down than this, and they like to grow more on the sunny side, so they've just got colonised about 12 foot of hedge here, but we've got them all over the place. So down here you can see loads of different things growing in the hedge here. Loads of dog rose, which are loads of different types of them. This one flowers quite late, some of them flower earlier, but each different type doesn't last for that long. And a huge diversity of different tree types. The hornbeam here, field maple, hazel there, hawthorn, willow. Just like in a small area you get such a big diverse mixture of different plants and different tree types, and with it of course you get all the different animals that come with them. And of course these banks that they're growing on, different sides of the bank face different directions, just like any other natural feature or landscape feature. So you get the different plants on the side facing south, the north, different ones growing at the base where it's wetter, all sorts. And then all the water of course is all drained into the pond. So over here all the water from this main path goes down into this little unseen little gap in the hedge, and it feeds into the pond down there. And we've got similar features all down the paths that catch all the water and send it to where we want it to go. Some plants like this valerian, they just grow anywhere. They grow in a sunny swamp, in a shady woods, boggy, dry, anywhere. And they're very good. The roots are used for sleep disorders and nervous disorders. Really, really nice with these nice divided leaves. And here we got like a nipplewort. They sort of grow in a variety of different environments, like a whole spray of tiny little dandelion flowers, which are edible. The whole leaves are edible. Everything's edible. But they're quite a common weed in vegetable gardens, and they cure loads of things. They've got tons and tons of herbal benefits. It's really most noticeable by these tiny little sprays of flowers, which are really like dandelion flowers, and they seem to close in the afternoon. It's strange. I haven't quite sussed them out yet, but quite a bitter taste, but not too bad really, and really really good for you. You can cook the leaves as a vegetable, or you can eat them raw. They're nice before they flower. Yeah, it's quite bitter now, really, quite horrible. But the flowers are nice, so it's the same with a lot of things. But really good for putting on inflammation, sores or anything like that. Really good just to squish them and apply them. And they're really good healing herb, the nipplework. Very common. And you know, they're one of the first things to seed into any sort of newly dug ground, but they also grow really happily in hedgerows and things like that. Wild strawberries are just amazing. They just don't need anything doing to them if they're happy. And it's sort of like just a sunny, steep bank in the woods or in a hedge or something. And they're so easy to grow, and they're just gorgeous. You know, like about 5 of them is maybe equivalent to an ordinary strawberry, but they're much sweeter. You don't like them. Oh, and there's just tons of them. Every day for 4 months of the year, just tons and tons of strawberries, and they're still flowering, so they're still producing more strawberries. But yeah, really productive, sensible thing. You can get a lot of food from a hedge, and also it attracts a lot of wildlife, so that's really good. So different hedges facing different directions, more diversity, lots of different environments. That's all a really good thing. And hedges are very good for dividing land up from different use bits of land, and it's good for creating shelter and windbreaks. And of course, a lot of the animals that live in these hedges are then animals that eat garden pests, which is really good. So it helps provide more of a natural balance. So it's good to have, within reason, as many hedges as possible, dividing up different bits of land. And smaller field sizes make sense for wildlife. Elder is a really common shrub which grows in hedgerows, like shrub or small trees, Sambucus nigra. And has, look here, you can see the berries developing. You can eat those when they're ready. These elderberries, they won't be till kind of the end of the summer, beginning of the autumn. But these flowers, which go on for quite some time, they're edible and it tastes quite nice, really. And there's some big ones of them there. You just sort of like break a bit off, and you've got these little flowers here, and they taste really nice. You can press them into elderflower juice. The leaves aren't particularly good, but the berries and the flowers are good, and they come for quite a long season, really. They've been flowering for about 2 months. They have loads of these big flat heads, and they just keep on producing them. This is the last of them now, so they're nearly over, but they are incredibly productive and very common. They grow in hedges and in the under canopy and woodland. They're quite tough, really. An orchard creates a completely different environment, again, a sort of a semi kind of wooded, dappled kind of environment. And the kind of grass plants that grow in here are plants that don't mind a bit of dappled shade. So it is a different environment again, but also a productive environment. Fruit are starting to develop on the trees. Some nice ones there. And that's really good. The first ones are usually ready in about August, and then they go right the way into like whenever the frost comes. And whenever the frost just comes, we then pick them all because they don't survive a frost. But they should. Looks like we're going to have a decent harvest this year, as long as it's not too dry, because they do like quite a bit of rainfall. But it's quite in a big area. We've got a lot of different fruit trees. Different apples and pears, mostly from different parts of the world, and loads of interesting different different varieties. There's a bit of summer pruning on these soon, but it looks like we're going to have a nice harvest though. Nearly all the trees have got laden with fruit, and that's really good, because we sort of freeze them and have them as smoothies all year round. So I'm still having the apples from last year in smoothies and things still. It looks like we're going to have quite a lot of them this year, hopefully. Ponds are really the apex of diversity. So many things have their breeding cycles in ponds and need water from ponds. Ponds just are brilliant. Even here they can divide up areas. So woodland on that side and grassland on this side. There's a huge different environment here. The deep water, the shallow water all creates different bits. And here you can see we've made the edge really wiggledy. So come round Over here you see all the windy headlands and islands and things, creating a maximum kind of coastline, all again with bits facing different directions, some bits drier, some bits wetter, all to create sort of a multitude of habitats for all different kinds of things to live. All the marginal plants and everything, when they finally get established, they create a different environment too, and it's sort of a blending and blurring of what is the pond and what is the land. Here you've got an orchard, and just over there you've got pond, and then just through this little gap here is back into woodland again. So this is like the north side, so the sun's coming from here, so the orchard gets sunlight. If it was the other way around, the woods would shade the orchard. So it's good to have things planned in the right places. But here we got like a nice little strip of woodland, which again is divided into lots of different heights and depths and environments. So all of it is just to create as many different habitats as possible. This bit is like a growing ridge, and as we're getting soil from other bits of landscaping like pond digging and different bits of landscaping, any sort of spare soil gets dumped over the edge of this feature and then covered in topsoil, and it sort of gradually moves along, and it's actually like a ridge, which is also a watershed. So this bank here, which divides the woods from the orchard, that is the watershed. Everything, all the rain that falls to this side comes down this valley here into the drainage ditch that comes from the overflow from the pond up there, and then goes down to the next pond, and in a windy way again, so it has a chance to soak into the ground. Like a straight thing that's fairly narrow is going to go vroom straight out of the land and sucking all that spare water away, because we catch it all in the ponds and save it. You can see here the top bits of it, they're much more recently planted, and as you look further down, the hedge is much more established. And this lower bit was done a while ago now, and the trees in here are getting really big and established. This oak tree is going to dominate this part of the woods eventually, and then all around it is just shrub trees, and you've got a big lime tree over there, and a big oak tree over there, and another big oak tree over there. So we've got like this sort of planned where eventually the big trees in the woods are going to be, and just filled up the rest of it with shrub trees, so it creates an instant canopy and makes the bigger trees grow a bit faster to sort of compete with the shrub trees. And that always seems to work. I always do woods that way. Usually, sometimes I do them a bit differently. Sometimes I do them like clumps of trees. But usually I like doing this method with lots and lots of shrub trees, some of which will become under canopy, others that will just be there for that process, like hawthorns and things. And it seems to make a nice mixture. And yeah, lots of trees doing really well here. And here, just down from that ridge, you've got this big deep valley here, and the water's sort of transported down this little wiggly ditch, which isn't, this section isn't finished yet. And then up here, big steep bank, which will be able to be colonised by loads of plants that don't like being trampled. And then sort of up there, you've got this big dry ridge. So it's all sort of designed to make use of little spaces and everything. All this bit here is along the north side of the land, so having a woodland here doesn't really shade anything at all, so that's very, very good. It's really good to have woods. They're a tremendous resource. I mean, they provide lots of wood, which is really useful, loads of herbs and woodland plants. They produce loads of food, and on a really hot day it's just lovely to have a woods to shelter in, because it's just so nice to have somewhere you can sit in the shade out of the sun, and that's really, really good. There used to be an actual old hedge that ran along here, and you can still see there's like a kind of straight line of trees there. So this is all newly planted. It's about a decade old, this bit, and the water from the top pond actually runs down this channel here, and then it's all like just all the landscaping around, all the land just sucks all the water to here, where it sort of just wiggles around and then goes down to the next pond. Another different environment again here is the swamp. This area is sort of fairly shallow water, totally tangled with all sorts of vegetation, and these sort of bulrushes have recently appeared. You've got all sorts of like woodruff growing in the swamp here. Loads of things can grow in swamps that can grow in other places as well. Again, this is a completely different environment, which has again a completely different plants and animals. Swamps, especially these seasonal swamps that spend the winter kind of like saturated, and they sort of dry out for a bit in dry weather in the summer, like this one. They're just the plants get really tall, and you get these huge meadow sweets for the pendula, which gets really big, and then these willow herbs and valerian, and these great big stinging nettles, and all sorts of like giant umbelliferous plants. And it's just another completely different environment as well. This is all on the floodplain of the river, which is, you know, the flat bit on the bottom of the valley, which just floods if there's a flood. And then down here, there's actually a river. If it just parts those a minute, and there's a nasty Indian balsam plant which you pull out from here. There's a nasty invasive weed. Just hang them up in a tree and dry them out or something because they're nasty. But yeah, that's a totally different environment again. These newly planted woodlands are sort of another unique environment. They're kind of transitional. They have some of the meadowland plants, they have some woodland plants, and they have lots and lots of grasses and very high undergrowth. Still just as if it was like a meadow or an overgrown meadow, but then you've got like these little trees coming up, and as the trees get bigger and bigger and shadow out more of the sun-loving plants, then you get more of a woodland environment. And these trees have only been in a couple of years. This is their second year of growing since they were planted. And this is the odd big one from around the edges that were there before. Yeah, this area is sort of in transition. It's got like a lot of different things. One thing that does really well here is this little marsh woundwort, which is a really handy if you've got a cut or a bruise or anything. Just squash the leaves up and just apply it. It's really good for cuts, wounds, bruises, bones, all sorts of things like that. And it's really quite common anywhere a bit boggy, and it quite likes growing in swamps and grassland, but it will grow under trees a bit. And you just like pick it and squash it and apply it, and it's really good. Anyway, I hope you liked today's video. If you did, please like and subscribe. If you press the little me down there somewhere, you can see all my other videos. If you have any questions, please just ask, and I shall see you next time.